stay? What do they look at in order to decide whether or not they can stay? Is it their behavior, or what is it?
Well, to be completely honest, based on what's been going on here, I would say that they don't even look at anything. I would say that it's essentially just unvetted, like large mass scale migration. So there are people that are coming here that have like rape charges, for example, or murder charges in their previous country, and they're not checking that. So there's all these people that are in the country now. One of the things that's like really scary, for example, is that the previous Tory government hid an entire Afghani refugee program from the public, and without us knowing, some obscene amount of Afghanis came to the country, and they put a complete media block on it. And it's turning out that a lot of these Afghanis just applied for the program that did not work with the UK Army or the US Army, and we're working as interpreters. And they're actually, now we've found out that some of them are also ISIS terrorists. So it's like, it's a complete shit show over here. Like, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen such a massive breakdown in standards.
It's almost like the governments want to demoralize the people and cause chaos. I wonder why they want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You do realize the only way to rule Clown House or, Clown World is to destroy Clown World or, to essentially divide and conquer.
Pakistan is not at war with anyone. It has not been at war with, since a long time.
What do you mean? They just attacked India 3 months ago.
Yeah, that demonstrates the religious hatred. They think if it is a war between two countries, you will just attack the soldiers, isn't it? An army post. What they did was they infiltrated into India, 3-4 terrorists. They went to a touring spot. They literally pulled out. First of all, they asked whether they can say the Islamic prayer, and when they were in doubt, in order to confirm, they pulled out their pants and checked whether the men were circumcised or not, and they immediately shot them without one asking any question. And when the accompanying women was in a state of distress and said, "Kill us also," they didn't kill them because they want to leave people, so they'll be in a state of trauma. And everybody, Hindus and one Christian also was killed. So this is the religious hatred. We don't, there is no other problem other than religious hatred. I would like to inform the room that there is an Islamic prophecy that says that they will conquer India. It's called Kaswai Hind. You can just type on YouTube Kaswai Hind, and you'll find hundreds of videos that prophesizes this. They're already ready for this, and there are people asking, when we conquer India, what will happen to all the Hindu women, whether we'll marry or whether we'll keep them as sex slaves? This is the kind of idiotic question that they are asking to clerics. See the kind of indoctrination and the kind of hatred that they have against others. And even the children are so indoctrinated that a video came up, like we'll be celebrating our next holidays in New Delhi or in Mumbai or at some other city. What that implies? That implies that Pakistan will conquer India and they will either convert or kill all Indians. And even celebrities, that's another, we love the Pakistani cricketers when cricket happens. So even prominent Pakistani cricketers whom we have helped, many times, they were talking about this. They are saying that rivers of blood will flow, which means only one thing, that again the Hindus will be slaughtered by Pakistanis. They believe in this. So It's not Islamophobia or any bullshit. And they'll do it, whether you like it or not, whether you're friendly or not, whether you do anything for them. They think that is your country is Karnataka. They will invade it.
From a Western perspective, importing high testosterone young men that are polygamists and militant in nature because of religious and, I guess theocratic programming, it's not desirable because it causes more conflict and more concern and more work on behalf of the new host country. It's like bringing fleas or parasites, into your home. I mean, nobody wants to deal with bed bugs.
Okay, I love the metaphors. They're very. No, but I just think that they were a little bit small, maybe, but it's okay.
The word you were looking for was creative.
I just want you to land. I want you to hit that nail on the head there, John. Not quite there, bro. I can see what you're saying. But I just wish you were like there.
Well, a lot of people, the way they deal with bed bugs, they just throw the whole mattress out and then they got to do a full sterilization of the room. I mean, you can't leave one little critter left. Otherwise, it can re-multiply. You got a whole nother infestation and you got to throw out that mattress again. It's a lot of work dealing with bed bugs.
Are we the bed bugs?
Well, sometimes you don't know if you're the parasite and sometimes you don't know if you're the host. But, intelligence is being able to determine whether or not you are the parasite or you are the host.
So, what if we are able to realize we might be the parasite? Are we still intelligent?
I don't know. If you describe yourself as a parasite, would you describe yourself as being intelligent?
I'm not saying that. Maybe sometimes we all can be a parasite, right?
I don't think that's the question. I think the question is ethics. It's what is right, what is wrong, and that should be the guidance when you speak. So if we don't have any guidance, we can talk shit about everyone. We can start a genocide or anything. I just think that we should have our manners in place. That's it.
Agreed, but when your government and your local elected official imports thousands of Muslims into your backyard without even telling you, there's grounds to be a little upset with your elected so-called democratic leaders that are destroying your future.
That is accurate. That's accurate. Yeah, sure.
I have sent you a website. It's called thereligionofpeace.com. It's a very informative website. They update the daily attacks or incidents that happen around the world. It also gives the statistics on what is happening around in the world in a month. There's also some interesting things running like Ramadan, Ramadan. During Ramadan, the number of kills that Muslims make is given a statistic. Hinduism. Now that's religion of peace. There we go. The guy who killed Gandhi was a Hindu. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Mountain. I said Hinduism. That's the religion of peace, right? It's the guy who killed Gandhi. He was a Hindu. You're saying that the guy who killed Gandhi was a Hindu? Yeah, he was. That's what I've been reading. He was a Hindu. Yes, of course, he was a Hindu. When women were being raped in Calcutta, Calcutta in Direct Action Day in 1947. You know what Gandhi said to these women? Learn how to get killed. If the Muslims want to rape you, just let them rape you. He was also responsible for another genocide in 1921, wherein the Muslims almost wiped out the Hindu population in southern state of Kerala. And all, including Annie Besant, was criticizing him. So he was basically appeasing the Muslims. He gave them, he allowed them to massacre the Hindus on more than 2 occasions. He allowed them, he considered the creation of Pakistan and Bangladesh. He also sat on a protest to give Pakistan 50 crore rupees. Okay, you know what Pakistan did? They took the money and bought ammunition and raided India.
Can we talk about Israel and the problem Israel has? I mean the problem the Muslims have with Israel instead of other countries, please.
Sure, but it should be
Well, he's saying some interesting things about the Mahatma Ji I've never heard before, and I gotta say it's a little alarming.
Yes, it's alarming because even I was not aware of it. And only when I grew up and people started saying, I opposed them. I said nothing like that happened. But when I read history, and when I had gone through the accounts of those who were privy to it, I have a different view. And maybe, yes.
I was just going to ask if one of the mods can reset the room and we can start this party.
So it should not just concentrate on Israel because people will think that this is happening only in Israel and you are to be blamed. When you show them that it is happening all around the world, that only then will people realize that this is a global problem and this ideology is a problem. Otherwise, they think this is just a land dispute.
I agree.
So what is it in Islam that gives them this, I guess, feeling of superiority, or I can do whatever the F I want to do?
This is, when they start off in madrasa, that is the Islamic schools, they are totally brainwashed. They have said everything. Like one of my friend, he did not have any much outside contact with other people. So he was told every day that Islam is the most perfect religion. It is perfect according to science, and there are many scientific facts in the Quran. And this has a certain effect on people. Okay. Then there is a Spartan lifestyle. In this madrasas, you are abused. You have to get up in time. If you don't recite the Quran, you are thrashed mercilessly. So it is a Spartan lifestyle. And sometimes even the food is very scarce. You get abused sexually in this madrasas. You can get corporal punishments. You can get severely beaten up. So where do they vent the anger? That is when these imams redirect the anger towards the non-believers. They'll not teach it directly initially. They'll say, Allah doesn't like shirk. And who are the people who commit shirk? Yes, it is the Jews, Christians, and here in India, it's majority Hindus. Whom do they worship? They worship the cows. All kind of these tropes are fed into the psyche. This act, even if they don't mean it, it'll be in the back of their mind. Like a guy was describing an incident wherein this guy has never seen a Jew in his life. Okay, so both this Hindu and this Muslim was traveling on a bus. Suddenly, a foreigner alighted the bus. I boarded the bus, and said that he's from Israel. While conversing, he's from Israel. And the Hindu guy was describing he has never seen a Jew, and this Muslim friend also has never seen a Jew. But immediately the Muslim got angry. And he is usually a cool person. He was like so angry with this guy whom he has never known. And he wanted to thrash him, but he know the consequences. That's why he was keeping his cool. I would like to narrate another incident, very funny. Okay. Like 2 years back, a cleric was saying that you should not have fruit juice. Rhyme with the juice. It is the invention of the juice. Imagine the kind of tropes they are making up and distributing. It's very funny. But at the same time, it is also tragic because there are people who believe it, idiots. They've been conditioned in that way, and they have this control mechanism. Everything that you do is controlled. If you don't go to mosque, people will notice, and they will ask you, "Did you come to mosque?" He cannot lie, because there will be others who will corroborate the story. And if you don't come, you'll be like ostracized, and people will like physically assault him if they don't come to mosque for a long period of time.
Did Muhammad decide to call Islam Islam because they want to like slam all religions and slam all other ideologies? Is that the basis for the Islamic, or the Mohammedans is Islam?
No, can I play a video? I got a video I can play. The mods don't mind.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
I'll read the context 1 second.
I mind.
You mind?
Yeah.
Who's that? Yeah, you're not a mod. Okay.
Then I'm
No, you're not. Okay.
And then
Mod, can you mute that guy so I can play this video?
now I'm mod. It's good.
Okay, 1 second.
What's the video, baby? What is
I'm playing it. 1 sec.
But what is it before you play it?
Muslims living with Hindus. Problem. Muslims living with Baha'is. Problem. Muslims living with Shintos. Problem. Muslims living with Buddhists. Problem. Muslims living with Christians. Problem. Muslims living with Muslims. Very big problem.
All right, I don't want to hear. I don't like to bang on any religion, so I don't. Okay, I don't think it's helpful, baby. Thank you, though.
It's not banging on a religion. It's stating the facts, and then the video wasn't even finished.
I understand. I muted it. I don't want to. It is banging on Islam. You're saying that Islam can't live with anybody.
No, but you didn't let the. Okay, never mind. Not gonna argue.
Yeah.
If you listen to the full context of the video, they leave their country to go to another country, and then because they didn't like the country they left, and then they turn that country into the country that they left. It's like a woman that getting plastic surgery all the fucking time. You can't keep her happy. Even God can't even make her happy.
When Pakistan was divided, the man responsible for partition was Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He was a Shia. Okay. Now the Sunnis in Pakistan are calling Shia.
But I understand, Norm. You didn't want to slam, but this guy's been slamming Islam for the past 20 minutes that I've been in the room. But you wouldn't let me play the video.
Okay, another sect called Ahmadiyas. They were at the forefront of partition. Now the Sunnis are saying that they are not Muslim. They are being persecuted, while Ahmadis in India are having a peaceful life. You can see during Eid, they are not allowed to sacrifice the animal. Their minarets are broken down. Their places of worship will be bombed. Yeah, Muslims are safer in India than in Pakistan because you don't know who is going to come and place a bomb in Pakistan. Shia bombs the Sunnis, Sunnis bomb the Shia, both bombs the Ahmadis. Well, Scotty has put up another room which says the Zionist can't be reasonable or have a debate. And there is no one in the room except Scotty.
Oh, there's another live going on, is there? Mr. AJ? Let me check.
You know, I have one. I started an Islamic, Mohammedan, Muslim nonprofit so I could help spread the joy of Quran to more Muslims and more potential Muslims. I figure like get ahead of the curve before they control the marketplace.
Okay, now can I play the video? Tobias? Ruben chick?
But he's asking that.
It's BB.
Yeah, you can play it. Play whatever you want, man.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll allow it.
Okay, then
I'll moderate you too, BB. One sec.
thanks, and then I'm gonna read the context after because it's pretty interesting. But yeah, 1 second, guys. Thanks. Because I think it's important.
Problem. Muslims living with Hindus. Problem. Muslims living with Baha'is. Problem. Muslims living with Shintos. Problem. Muslims living with Buddhists. Problem. Muslims living with Christians. Problem. Muslims living with Muslims. Syria. They're not happy in Lebanon. They're not happy in Nigeria. They're not happy in Kenya. They're not happy in Sudan. They're not happy in Morocco. And they're not happy in Afghanistan. So, where are they happy? They're happy in Australia. They're happy in Belgium. They're happy in France. They're happy in Holland. They're happy in Italy. They're happy in Germany. They're happy in Spain. They're happy in Sweden. They're happy in Denmark. They're happy in the USA and Canada. They're happy in Norway and India. They're very happy in England. Loads of welfare benefits. They're happy in almost every country that is not Islamic. And who do they blame? Not Islam, not their leadership, not themselves. They blame the countries they are happy in, and they want to change the countries they're happy in to be like the countries they came from where they were living with.
So
When you read the, it says, for those not following the logic of this video, Muslims flee their own countries to objectively better countries than the only one they fled with, the goal of turning the new country into the one that they fled from. No logic, but it's their religion that tells them Islam is to take over the entire world and enter every house. Many other migrants flee countries that are not Muslim, but the difference is that they assimilate into the countries by respecting its laws, but becoming more like the people in it, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, but they do not have an end goal of turning it into the place they came from. That would make zero sense.
Well, you can't put the blame necessarily on the people that want to make their new host country like their former bad host country, because it's really the leaders of the Western countries that are letting them in to begin with. Those are the most guilty, in my opinion, of all, of this whole dynamic. It's the people in the West that are letting these Muslims in.
I agree. And why do you think that is? And you're a very intelligent guy. Do you think they're doing it because of votes?
I think it's clown world. It's wokeism, and they are trying to malign and destroy their own country in order to essentially maintain power, which you could say is votes.
No, they're doing not just for votes. They're doing because these people come and work the jobs that you would not work.
But they're not. But they're not like in Canada and the United States. If you see it, they're coming here because they're making more money. Like in Canada, they're making more money than somebody who's worked here for 35 to 40 years, getting a retirement pension and benefits and old age. They're making more. So my mother tomorrow, even though she came as an immigrant, worked her whole life here, worked for 50 years. I think she makes $1,100 a month, retired. If she goes tomorrow, throws away her passport, starts speaking different language, she would quadruple that amount. How the fuck is that right and normal? I want to know the actual stats on how much migrants Like, what's the ratio? How much they're taking off of the system as opposed to the people that actually built this country? I would agree with your statement if it was 20 years ago. They come here, they work. No, they come to Western countries and into Europe and take the benefits of it and then burn the flag of the country that they're sitting in, receiving the benefits of it.
True, but I'm saying there's demographic change. I mean, you cannot deny that the average age of Europe is now like 45 plus, 47 plus in Spain and in Norway and so on. You cannot deny that sooner or later, the doctors, the nurses, lots of these people will be immigrants, and out of immigrants, a huge number of them are going to be Muslims.
So you think wait, hold on, because from my understanding, the Muslim world's making babies at a faster rate than anybody else. But somebody who's very well versed as Yaakov, he could give you like actual data and stats on that. But, Yaakov, you actually talked about the birth rate.
Yeah, in Western countries, they have much larger families than native populations. In the U.S., average American family is like 1.69 kids per woman. It can be anywhere from 3, depending on where you are, 3 to 5. When you're getting all these benefits and you're getting housing allowances and other things, it's easier to have kids.
Okay,
There's a built-in incentive to have children. Like they're taught, more kids equals, a better future and quicker path to taking over.
Absolutely. Quick anecdote. I was in a cab in the U.S. and the guy who was driving me was a literally Palestinian, right, who lived in Egypt. And he was telling me, I just happened to ask him, like, what do you do? He's like, I have a business. My son's run it. It's a mechanic shop, garage. And he's like, I have a good business. I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, yeah, I have 5 kids. 5 kids in America, 5 sons. All of them are supporting him in the business. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of children. Oh, he's like, that's nothing. He's like, that's nothing. My cousin who lives in the West Bank has 125 grandchildren. 125 grandchildren for one man. Because he has 15 kids and 125 grandchildren. Maybe he was exaggerating, I don't know. But
that goes back to the average age of 45 and older. I believe it's way younger.
The thing is, like, try even living somewhat of a decent life with like 15 kids and like fucking 125 grandchildren. It's like, there's no, like, if you're living in poverty and you're just having sex and kids, it's like, okay, cool, like, there's nothing to aspire to. But like, when you're living a somewhat decent life in like a Western country, like, you don't want that many kids simply because like your standards of living would be drastically.
But why not? If the government's giving you benefits to pay and you're living better than somebody who's worked there their whole life. But the problem I see with it, the problem I see is I don't think it's the problem of having 15 kids. I think the problem is when you're in that country receiving the benefits of the 15 kids and then you burn a flag of the country that's giving you the benefits. I think that's where the big, I wake up and all I want to hear.
The median age for Muslim Americans.
I don't really care about that.
The median age for Muslim Americans is 34, compared to, depending on what sector you're looking at, anywhere from 39 to 48. So they are significantly younger. So you can compare 34. Actually, the best way to compare, best two numbers to compare is 34 to 48 median age.
And did you hear the story from Texas where in Dallas they bought like 400 acres of land?
That got shut down.
That got shut down, I know, because I came to
shut down. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, so they were trying to create a small little Islamic piece of land within Texas where Muslims will rule. They will have a central mosque and mostly Muslims will get housing in that community. And they were trying to create a small little Sharia law. in Texas.
Why was that shut
They
down
wouldn't
based
do
on
that.
that
So the
principle?
way they got around doing that, and I don't know how, I have to look into it. I don't know how Governor Abbott shut it down because it's a local land use issue. But he claims to have shut it down. But the way they got it, you can't just sell property to Muslim Americans. It's just not allowed. What they did do is to say there's essentially it's a homeowners association, and there's a common fund that you have to pay into, and a large percentage of the common fund goes towards maintaining. I don't know what the Muslim word is for mosque, but Majid, I think is what it's called. So a lot of that goes to Majid. Thank you. So like Christians and Jews or anybody, A, probably don't want to be surrounded by all of that, and B, don't want to be supporting that financially. So it's a cute way of gatekeeping.
And I think
legal gatekeeping.
And I think the problem is that I think 90% or 99% of the room wouldn't care. They don't have a problem with any religion as long as the religion is not impeding on your life. Or I don't see many other religions where they leave the country that they're in, go to another country and try and rule the whole country, make everybody their religion, and don't want to contribute to society and want to make their own society. I think that's where the big problem is. And I think the elephant in the room is who we all see. So that's where the big problem comes in.
Look at Syria and the Islamists in Syria. They're throwing Druze off of cliffs that they just murdered. I mean, it's a murderous overthrow of the governments and the locals. It's submit to Sharia or die, and you're lucky if we don't kill you, even if you do submit to Sharia.
Yeah, and where's the outcry? Where's the rooms? Where's the Clubhouse rooms? Where's the Twitter Spaces? Where's the Instagram? Where's all these rooms? Where's these protests about what's going on in places like Syria? And I think there's a huge number of places that it's going on right now. Where is the outcry? There is none.
They're not. You can go to Amir's room, and he says, "I don't talk bad about Hamas." He says that's not my job. I don't talk bad about Hamas. So you have, and he will call people kuffars, and listen. If you're an Islamist and a Muslim, you got to stay on code. You can't break from code.
Islam is a spectrum. On the extreme spectrum, there are jihadists like Al Qaeda and stuff. On the other side of the spectrum, there are people like the mayor from London, and now possibly the mayor of New York. Right, they're on the other side of the spectrum, and in between is everybody: the lawyer, the judge, the housewife having multiple kids and sharing her partner with 4 other women or 3 other women. They're all in it for the same cause. Some just directly kill you, some don't. That's it. Education does not matter. Nothing matters.
Do you remember when that Sinbad or Sinbar guy got killed? The leader of Hamas. He got killed. Well, I just sent a picture of that dude to Amir because he didn't believe that it was actually him. So I sent him an actual picture. He blocked me permanently from his room. It's like he's definitely a Hamas sympathizer, just saying the mirror. So.
Not just a sympathizer, he is a potential terrorist and a terrorist promoter.
I agree. Absolutely a promoter.
It just reminds me of, you guys remember when ISIS was doing their thing and they were big? And you would see little groups in Virginia and I forget, there's little camps, and then women were also running to join and be married to them and this and that. And it was what the fuck? This is more of a passive-aggressive way of what they're doing now. But I think it's more dangerous, way more, far dangerous of what's going on with these rooms, with these guys that are promoting and sitting back and saying, I'm just giving you the news. And no, you're not. You're grooming.
Yeah. Just as bad as our schools were grooming us for college. I mean, who the fuck are the groomers from? Yes, Adamir, yes.
See, if you're a leader and you all you do is stir the pot of hate, you're not a leader. You're actually a leech, a parasite, a turd.
Yeah,
Islamophobic.
absolutely.
That's Islamophobic. How dare you?
Well,
No, but that's the problem. People are afraid to talk about Islam because they're like, oh, we're bashing. No, you're not bashing. If somebody's robbing a bank, no, but listen, that's the problem. People are afraid, right? But if we're talking about bank robbers because they rob banks, then they're like, I don't want to. I don't want to give bad word names to bank robbers. No, you're doing a bad fucking thing. Somebody needs to talk about you. And there needs to be more and more people talking about it without the fear of being called Islamophobic.
see, Sabina will say there's a difference between Islamophobes and Islama hate. See, Islamophobia suggests that you are fearful of something that you are unaware of, meaning that you haven't really truly learned that Islam is a religion of peace and harmony and balance and stability. So you're accused of being fearful about something you don't know anything about. And when you attack Islam, you're called an Islamic hater. So this is all just political reverse psychology, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And you should be concerned not just about the religious aspects, but you should be more concerned about the political ambitions. It's a political movement primarily and deals very little with spiritual, psychological issues with regards to peace and balance and stability and harmony and love and law. It's political. It's a political movement to control you, to usurp your rights, your constitutional God-given liberties, with a new set of rules, which is the final revelation, the religion that culminates the Abrahamic religions and summarizes it in a brilliant new flash of political ideology.
Wow, that was amazing.
It's garbage philosophy. It's a primitive philosophy. And it worships death, and it's not compatible with Western values. Fuck it.
Agreed. See, if they were more intelligent, they would actually be reading poetry and doing taqiyya by giving you maybe the fruits of Islamic scholars like Rumi, and that because that is a great book. But again, that deals with psychology. That to me, I've read Rumi many times. It's the only intelligent thing I've ever read that has come out of the Islamic world, and it was Persian. It was not, Arabian.
I just can't wait until everybody is to start welcoming together to see what is I just can't wait for the protests.
You won't see that because in the left and the West, we are totally woke. Wokeism is the herd psychology still. The mind virus hasn't necessarily been broken, and it will take strong leaders and patriotic leaders like Trump and J.D. Vance and other great Americans who are willing to resist the woke mind virus, which is an infection in our soul, in our charter, in our constitution.
Well, do you think the kind of do you guys think that like realistically? Because I think you may be onto something, but I don't know because everybody, I don't know what your ages are here, but when I was a kid, everybody loved Michael Jackson. Right, the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson, he was like everything. He was like mesmerizing the way he danced, the way he sang. And then towards the end, everybody turned on him.
Well, he was dangling babies out of windows. The guy turns out to be a sociopath, psychopath, and
Everybody loved Bill Cosby too, bro. Everybody loved Bill Cosby too.
No, but yeah, exactly. But the people we're talking about, they don't dangle babies out of windows. They throw them out fucking windows and throw people off rooftops and murder.
Well,
You know what I mean?
look what the former speaker said about Mahatma Gandhi. Historical revisionism is a bitch because a lot of people think Mahatma was this fantastic leader, but no, he actually gave up a lot of his own people to appease Muslims and allowed them to get murdered and said, learn to love how to get murdered. Like that. So there's a dark side to history with regards to, this glorious revolution and liberation of neocolonialism or colonialism. So, you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Sleep naked with young teenage girls too, bro.
Well, he was just trying to boost his chakras. You know, all great leaders need to keep their chakras boosted.
Yeah. But how many of us have seen those videos of the child marriages that are going on to today in 2025 still? The people,
Wow.
how are people not shaking their fucking head?
Because, you know, from the TikTok, Instagram, YouTube consumers of the West, when they see something happening in a third world, they just go, "Oh, that's just third world customs. You know, not my problem." But literally down the street and in every major U.S. city, they're building mosques at an unprecedented rate.
That's the culture.
I mean, Jewish restaurants in Chicago get torn down and they build mosques. It's happening all over, and the Saudis fund a lot of this. You know, there's a lot of criticism in America for Israel and other countries, but you don't ever hear these complainers talking about Saudi Arabia or Syria or Yemen or any of these places where the virulent strain of Islam exists. And meanwhile, we're importing it into our own major cities and even rural towns. It's an invasion, and Trump is just the man to stop it, and he is stopping a lot of this Muslim migration.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the man because he just took a $250 million Qatari plane. You know why he took that plane? And why did Qatar give it to him? Do you have any idea?
Well, see, he's a smart guy. You don't kick a gift horse in the mouth. If somebody says, "Hey, here's a $250 million toy," and people criticize, but go ahead, Shiva, why?
I mean, the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world is Qatar. Nobody comes close. Iran doesn't come close to Qatar. The Qataris are the only people who sponsor both Shia and Sunni terrorist jihadi groups. Okay? And the Qataris have a huge American base protecting them. The king, the leadership of Qatar is being protected by the American military. Can you imagine what you're doing there? And to take a gift from them for $250 million, that means I'm making peace with you. I'm not going to touch you guys. Keep doing what you're doing, and as long as you do business with me, we'll get along. That's it. So I wouldn't give too much of a.
Well, why do you even think that gift was like a sincere gift? Because there's a lot of liabilities with maintaining a plane. It's like here's a toy that we don't even want to take care of anymore because we'd rather upgrade to the new model. It's like it's basically a bullshit gift.
What if it's hacked? That Trump goes on it one day and they fucking control it and fly it into a fucking building.
Well,
I'm sure the Air Force will strip it down and they will do all the checks necessary. But the point is, why are we taking it? They will give it, no problem. They have lots of money. Qatar has a lot of money, right, lying around. They will give it, but why are we taking it?
I think the principle is don't kick a gift horse in the mouth. We'll take anything you want to give us for free. I mean, we're sick of spending money. How about you give us something? The point is, it's a fucking insincere gift. It's a stupid gift. But the fact that the media blows it up and claims that he's violating emoluments and that he's taking a gift, it's his gift, it's going to go to his presidential library. It's like, fuck off. Like, keep your stupid fucking plane. But, the principle is, oh, you want to be nice and give us something? Yeah, sure. I'd love to take your gift. You don't kick a gift horse in the mouth.
You do have a point. I mean, we're tired of paying for everything. Why the fuck not get something like that for free? So you would take gifts from Al Qaeda?
No, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, I think before they abandoned Afghanistan, they should have torched and destroyed every single piece of military equipment that they left there. To leave the Afghanis with U.S. military weapon systems to make them into a strong army is fucking mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is strange as fuck, right? I mean, we did make them an actual legitimate military, but we didn't, as citizens, we didn't fucking, we didn't want that shit. I think most of us wouldn't even want to be in Afghanistan in hindsight. And Donald Trump, he wasn't in power when this happened. Withdrawal happened under Joe Biden.
I mean, the fact that Yasser Arafat's daughter has, 3 billion, 5 billion sitting in Parisian banks, and a lot of that money came from donors around the world or U.S. aid. American leadership is schizophrenic in their decision making. They support both sides of wars. It's like pick a side, pick your allies, but don't support everybody and give everybody American taxpayer, funded items.
But they're probably getting kickbacks, John. That's probably why they're doing it, bro. You're just answering like that. Why would that seems so insane? Why would they be doing it? But they're obviously getting kickbacks and getting rich off this shit.
We got a real problem with this. Who's the newest Trump ally these days? Pakistan. The wonderful country of Pakistan is the biggest ally because Trump's family is doing business with them. They have a crypto exchange or crypto coin they have invested in. And they're getting along with Pakistan. The whole family visited the military general of Pakistan and his family. Can you imagine what's going on?
Well,
So,
Pakistan, Al-Qaeda is a proxy of the Pakistani army.
Yeah, I mean, Trump's sons just issued a SPAC, which is basically a blank check IPO, I think for 100 million, so they can make an acquisition. It must be nice to go to the market and be like, "Hey, we want to start a business. We don't know what business it's gonna be yet, but if you could maybe lend us $100 million, we would love to take that money and buy up somebody else's business." Or just gamble that money in, cryptocurrency.
so yeah, I voted for Trump, don't get me wrong, but I don't know where this is going.
I know SPACs aren't new. There's nothing new about a SPAC. But yeah, I mean, Islam is not the religion of peace. I have the glorious Quran, and I've tried to read it a few times, and it's very difficult to read because it's so boring, and you can tell that it's not written by some kind of college academic, scientist or philosopher. It's really definitely written from the desert. But I have heard in some circles that at the time the Jews were actually happy that Islam emerged out of nowhere because it was a political movement that was used to fight Christians, and many Jews felt that they were persecuted by Christians. So now there was this third party which was waging war against Christians and Christian kings, and Jews were supposedly happy that there was this new force fighting their own persecutors. So but now in 2025, I think that type of opinion is irrelevant. Islam uh, is so devious because it mixes law, politics, and religion into one with no differentiation. I mean, the beautiful thing about America is we have separation of church and state. There's no government religion. So, when you merge religion into a government, that's like total mind control. There's no liberty or freedom there to experiment with new ideas. It's either submit or die.
The title is fucking amazing.
So who is the supposed Jewish ghost that wrote the glorious Quran?
I'm wondering if they did that, if they, some Jewish guy's like, I'll do it, and he just cosplayed as a Muslim. And he's like, let me make it boring.
Oh, geez, now it's this Jewish psyop.
Yeah, and violent. You know what I mean? Just people. So do people like violence? Is that what's going on? Is that why it's being? Yeah, is that why it's being flocked towards? Because people need violence, or they call that a little excitement, but then they change it and call it passion.
Well, because they justify it. The problem with the West, the Muslim world is that when they hear like the resistance against the West and blah blah blah, like they actually sanction it. Like and it's like to whatever degree like necessary. Oh, Hamas are killing Jews, or 9/11 goes down, and like these people cheered on.
Yeah, but isn't there some Arab Muslim countries right now that are totally against Hamas, and people are ignoring them and saying that they're not Muslim countries now because they feel that they're traitors?
Who's this?
I don't know. Isn't Saudi, Qatar saying to Hamas, release the fucking hostages already?
Does that mean that they're against Hamas?
Well, you have France, Canada, that are saying to Israel, like, we want to shit on you and we want to recognize Palestine as a state. So you have countries that aren't Muslim countries that aren't talking, saying Hamas, release the hostages, but you have Muslim countries. Okay, that's honestly, that's like dumb. And so Canada, France, like country.
What ends up happening? Yeah, go ahead. Roger, let's talk about causation as to why this happened. We had a refinance culture and a lending culture that, a certain generation participated in, to taking out millions of dollars out of their equity to send their kids to, study women's studies at, Cal State Berkeley. So, I mean, the same generation is a direct cause of the same pattern of frivolous financing that the generation that they're complaining about engaged in.
Yeah, the good old-fashioned HELOC. You don't see many of those anymore.
Is that like a wrestling move?
No, the HELOC, it's a home equity line of credit where people would take the value of their home and they would borrow against it.
Using your home as an ATM.
Yes, and then essentially never paying your home off. I remember people buying houses in Modesto where they'd move out of the Bay Area. They'd go to Modesto, they'd buy a very inexpensive home, and then the value of the home would go up moderately. It wouldn't go up like the 12% per year that the Bay Area would, but let's say it goes up like, I don't know, 7-8% per year. And then to Adam's point, let's say they have like an event like, oh, Johnny's got to go to college. And they're like, where do I get college money? And then they look at their home and they say, oh, I can borrow against that. And so then they borrow like, against the value of the home. And all, they're not very good at math. I mean, yes, it's a source of income. And if you wanted to use it, you could. And I think you should be able to. I don't think it should be hard to get a home equity line of credit, and now it is. But it's not a wise move, because the whole point of property ownership versus rental is to be able to have this asset. And now you can use that asset to pay for the education if that's what you wanted to do. It's just a really fucking bad idea, because basically what you're doing is you're helping a kid get a degree that they're probably not going to go into the field of anyways. It's like 80-something% of college graduates don't go into the field that they studied in. So you mortgaged your fucking house for nothing.
Like, not even just that, Mojo, but like the same generation.
Can't get back into it either.
The same generation raised a culture to where loans, lent are otherwise forgiven. So a lot of these kids have not produced a positive return on their parents' investments. They're not taking their parents in, when their parents are getting sick. They're not, showing up and mitigating certain costs of their said parents aging in place. They have just taken, and have given nothing back in return. So to your point, when you actually, take out a home equity line of credit, and you're paying interest on that, by the way, and then your snot-nosed kid is only taking and not giving anything back, I mean, that's a really shitty investment. I mean, wouldn't you say, Mojo?
I would say it's a terrible investment, and you also got to link to the title of the room: small government, big government, no government. When you look at the cost of an education, it's directly caused at this point in time because of the involvement of the government backing loans. When the government got into the business of backing loans, the lender said, okay, I don't have to worry about credit worthiness because the taxpayer is going to back it up. So anybody that comes and applies, they can give them the loan that they want. Once the institutions learn that, hey, these people are qualified people are qualifying for them. We should raise tuition prices. And then the lender has no objection to lending lots of money to anybody because the loan is guaranteed. And the institutions are like, hell yeah. They got a bunch of fucking money that they were given from the taxpayers. Tuition is going up. And so if you want to fix the price of an education in the United States, you got to get the federal government out of it. And if you think that's bad, wait until they do the same exact thing with medicine.
Yeah, I remember like when lately when the Trump thing with not just Columbia but other universities, and realizing like not just the endowments. Everyone knows like Harvard has like several $1 billion endowment. Like this is just money sitting in the bank. But just like the amount of staffing they have versus students, and like how much they charge per year, and how much they pay professors, and I don't know, the whole thing just, if the government is like subsidizing a huge portion of it, or some portion of it, whatever portion it is, so like what's the incentive for the university to lower their costs or lower their tuition? It makes no sense, because if people are going to keep paying and the government's going to keep subsidizing, why not, right?
So I see the poll results, 77% prefer small government, 16% support no government. I call that the spirit of Bima that is still with us. And then 8% prefer big government. I'd love to hear from the big government people. Like, what do they mean? Like, why do they prefer a big government? Like, why is that a benefit? Love to hear that.
Well, it doesn't always come down to the belief that this fiat currency bubble supply system is infinite, and therefore we're just mean and nasty people who want to be fiscally prudent, that there's enough to go around, and it's all artificial control.
Well, I think those are the people that have bought into a particular lie, but I also think that there's plenty of people that are just stupid.
I would say it's the no government are the people that I question and look sideways at, because if you have no government, who's going to protect you? Like, I mean, I want you to think of this. I promise you, like, there is no rules, and we just had, like, whatever goes, whatever you can determine, and, we're going to call it the frontier, when the frontier was there. It didn't work out for no government on the frontier. I do recall in history that it never worked out well for them. So, I mean, you're going to have someone like me who will have no problem conquering you. I'm not that kind of nice guy. I may have, I'll just take your stuff and leave you for dead. I may decide a whole different type of government. I'll make sure you're in a government. It'll just be one of my choosing. And you'll end up facing the consequences. And see, people don't realize, like, government protects you from fires, wildfires. What are you going to do? You set up this settlement, you magically think everything's going to be a utopia. You're not going to have, like, a government entity come in and save you. You're not going to have rescuers come in. How about your heating supply, your electrical supply? Government there, like, you need those things. You need an infrastructure. You need railroads. You need grocery stores. You need all that. Private market may or may not take care of it, but if there's no government, private markets, private companies aren't going to build to the extent that they're going to, because there's no protection for them. They also require protection. They need to make sure that they're not going to be robbed. They need to make sure that they can safely set up shop in an area. That they're not going to have to shell out massive amounts of money just to repair things that are damaged, because, hey, there you go. And if they don't have electrical grids already installed, they're not going to set up shop there. They're not going to build. So it's always confusing to me when I hear the no government people, like the Bimas, and they just think that somehow or another, everybody is just going to go kumbaya, pick fruits in the orchard, and then they'll just share the peaches they got while sitting there, standing naked in the sun all day, and nothing will happen. About mass protocols for disease elimination, like your mosquitoes that carry a shit ton of diseases,
you know that the U.S., I know, with a multitude of other state governments, try to keep those at bay because you guys can't figure out how to get standing water out of your backyards. I mean, these are things that people don't think of when they think of government.
You know, I would love for one day for us to do a room where we just play the debate that I had with Bima about anarchy, and just listen to her explanation for questions like, "Hey, we got 5,500 nuclear warheads. Who's gonna have control of them?" And her answer to that was the people. The people will have control. And when you ask, well, what people? She just said, well, whoever. And it's the people could just have them. And you ask her, okay, well, don't you think that the people that have them currently, like, I don't know, like if you had a nuclear powered sub, you would probably just keep it. Under what standard would you have rules of engagement on when you would use these things? And she said that it would be up to all the individuals to decide how they would want to use them. I mean, like when you start asking the real questions, forgive me, axing the real questions, you get some very bizarre answers, and I would encourage people to go and listen to the stream. I'll go find it myself, and I'll pin it to the top. It's very interesting when she was asked the hard questions, how she would just spin out of control. And what's interesting is that we all know that the anarchists will never fucking take over. It's far more likely that we get a tyrannical government than no government, which is why with the 75% that said small government, there's a challenge to keeping the government small. Like it started off much smaller than it is, and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. It's become more tyrannical. Where we have $37 trillion in debt, $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and the government has the power to levy taxes over you to pay for their spending, which they also borrow, which causes inflation, which is another tax on the people. So I think that the biggest challenge is how do you keep a government small? And Bima's answer would be, well, because you can't do it, you should eliminate it. And I think the real $1 million question is, if the nature of government is to expand and to want more power over the people, how do you control that? How do you limit their power? We have documents in this country that, if we followed them, would do that. But every president that we've had likes to ignore the Constitution, including the one that we have in office today that doesn't have a very good understanding of the Constitution.
I agree with your premise on that, but like, it depends on what you mean by small government. Like I'll say, I want small power controls in the government. I want Congress to actually not be feckless and take back their role and retract some of the powers that have been afforded to the presidents throughout years. I think that's a good start. There are certain areas, but if you're talking to me about like, hey, should the government have a small role? Okay, in the energy sector, taxes could probably be able to do what they want to in terms of that. But some of those government subsidies that we pay tax dollars, they go to make sure that, pipelines aren't just controlled by one entity, that they can be universally used and energy gets out there. Niagara Falls, a natural resource, powers the entire northern seaboard, northeast seaboard into Canada. That's a huge energy grid. That's shipped in Hoover Dam, another one. These are central projects that without government support and spending in those areas, you wouldn't have it. And I think when a lot of people say no government, or I want to go back to the original, they're not thinking very well of how much like your state of well-being is actually dependent on the government. Many of you, 99% of you, would not survive in a colonial, like old revolutionary times. Like I'm just telling you flat out, you're not built for that. You don't know how to do this. You guys fought over toilet paper at Walmart. You are not built for having to be accountable and find and do resources on your own. So the idea that, hey, you know what, I want no government, or I don't want the government involved at all, depends on which sectors. Like, do you want it on infrastructure? Because the government, I'm going to tell you, highway system's pretty fucking good. You get from here to there. It needs work. I'm not saying it's perfect, but at least it allows for you to get your shit at Walmart across the country. You've got energy grids. You guys seem to run AC and heat. You have pools and all of this shit.
I mean, you're not suffering in that front. There's no one that can't have a home across the country if they want one. I mean, you're going to find a place to live in, so you've got shelter, and you don't have to do that. Many of that is due to a lot of government backing. So it just depends, Roger, where we're going with small government. We can pick up certain things, and I agree, the $1 trillion is a bit much to have that much debt up there, but I think it's a lot more nuanced versus big, small, or no government, and then the people cheering no government. We should never listen to those, ever.
Well, I agree that people are going to have different ideas of the reach that government has into our lives. I think that when I look at both sides of the political spectrum, even if you have something as simple as the First Amendment, right? You have people that want the government, they're calling on the government to ban books. It happens on the left and on the right. And I find it weird because when the left was banning certain books, the right was like freedom of speech. Now the right wants to ban certain books, and the left is saying, hey, freedom of speech. What I'm realizing is that we don't have a lot of free speech zealots. We just have people that they have preferred speech, and they want the government to protect that. If they find speech that they deem detestable, they absolutely want the government to ban it. And so I don't know how we solve this problem other than to recognize that like people having the right to freedom of speech, that means that they're going to have the right to say things that we don't like, consume materials that we don't like, and that's what it means to support free speech, is to keep the government out of that, putting their hand on the scale. Lou says the richest 1% owned more wealth than the bottom 99% combined. It points to the Gilded Age with extreme wealth inequality. I don't care about wealth inequality. In fact, I think that when we see wealth inequality and income inequality, it's a sign of a good economy. Where you have a large concentration of wealth, you're going to have wealth disparities. I want wealth disparities. That's my evidence that there's wealth. You know where there's not wealth disparities? Where there's not a lot of wealth. And so, I'm pro-wealth disparity. And by the way, this idea that the richest 1% own more wealth than the 99 combined, I'd like to see a source on that. I don't buy that. A lot of people will take this information into present day. They'll say, "Oh, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer." It's not really true. The poor have gotten richer, and actually now the poor have a free ride. I'm definitely in the camp of instead of eat the rich, I want to eat the poor. I don't know why people prefer being poor over being rich. I want people to have more money. So I'm on a crusade to cause the poorest Americans to pay more in taxes. I think that they need to pay their fair share. 97.7% of all federal income tax is paid by the top 50% income earners. The bottom 50% income earners pay 2.3% of all federal income tax. It's time we change that. No free rides. The poor need to pay higher taxes.
Well, it's the way it's set up when a low income taxpayer files. He's actually just getting a refund check or a credit from the government, or basically a wealth redistribution or a borrow and a spend from the government. So you are required to annually file, but a lot of these people also don't even file. I would say 20% of the population doesn't even file a tax return. So it's to your benefit to file if you're super low income, because you're just going to get the annual refund from the government. So the system itself is fucked up.
Correct. This idea that the rich are the problem is I'll never understand it. I would say that we need to start having more straight talk, that the rich should be held up in a higher regard, and the poor
they're the ones that need to be shamed into paying their fair share. And I think it's high time that the poor dig into their pockets and pay their fair share.
Well, so let me ask you a question. Do you believe that instead of giving people a child tax credit, sorry for the parents in the room, but do you feel that instead of giving a credit, they should be charged more in taxes? Because if you look at the likelihood of that said child coming into this world being a beneficiary of the government, shouldn't those said parents be charged higher in taxes?
I would go the opposite way and then just give a tax break for single people that have no children.
Okay, so I was controversial, but then Roger stepped on the gas.
Yeah. So we've incentivized, if you think about it, we've incentivized the idea of like married with kids. These are going to create tax credits. But the truth of the matter is, the people that get fucked are the people without kids. If you don't have kids and your property taxes are going to fund the school, like how is that equitable? You don't even have little bastards to go feed down at the fucking schoolhouse. And by going to feed, it's because they don't teach them anymore. It's like this whole school lunch program. It's fucking amazing to me that people literally believe that it's the job of the school to feed kids. It's almost as if parents don't have any responsibilities. I don't even recognize the world we live in today. It's weird.
It's crazy to me, Roger. I remember, like, when I was in middle school, my mom used to send me to school with, like, a check for the month of, they just added it onto your account, and, you put in your little pin when you went up to the lunch window and you got your food, and, my parents paid for my food. Like, I guess I never questioned, like, were there people around me that weren't doing the same thing? And, like, how fair is that to my parents?
Moose, you selected big government. What do you mean by that?
I just wanted to troll.
I would argue that Social Security is big government.
So let me ask you a question, Roger. Do you feel like Social Security at this point, given the cost of living, do you feel like that's helping anybody that lives independently aging in place? Because that should be the goal, right? To live independently aging in place.
Is it helping them? Look, there's no doubt that if you have someone that's aging in place, if you took that check that they were depending on away, that they would be in a worse state. There's no doubt about that, right? The question is, what would be a better system? And there's far more efficient systems. And maybe if we just got honest about what Social Security is, if we look at the fact that it's dependent on fewer people collecting and more people paying in, right? And then when that breaks, that's when you realize that's when the clarity arises in the fact that people like me that have always said it's a Ponzi scheme, when there was more people paying in, less people taking out, it didn't appear like a Ponzi scheme. But once that triangle is upside down and all of a sudden you have more people collecting than people putting in, that's when you realize that we're fucked. And so I just wonder why people can be anti-Ponzi scheme in other areas of their life, but when it comes to Social Security, they think that it's perfectly justified.
Mojo, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like there should be an age limit for which somebody should be able to co-sign a student loan?
Honestly, I think co-signers is a dangerous thing to because if you want to talk about fairness, right? Yes, wealthy people can co-sign for their kids. They have the credit scores. They have the income requirements. This is where I think that we should deem credit worthiness on an individual basis. And I don't think we should give loans to these little snot-nosed bastards that don't have a means to pay it off. Now, if you wanted to have a deferred payment, that would be one thing. I think the way that I would loan money, if I were structuring it, if it was Bank of Mojo and somebody wanted to borrow for a student loan, what I would say is like, oh, how long are you going to be in school? They'd say, oh, 4 years. I would say, okay, no payments for 4 years, no interest for 4 years. But then I would have a payment plan that on the back end of that, as they're starting their career, they can pay it off.
Well, and see, Roger, for me personally,
Yes, they do.
I saw one of my cousins that has.
They don't exclusively have it.
She has a fucking master's degree, and she's a yoga instructor. Meanwhile, at the end of my grandmother's life, part of her Social Security was being garnished because she was a co-signer of her student loan. How don't you think that there should be safeguards to, protect people from ending up in those situations?
No. I think people need to plan for themselves, and where my sympathy for people come in would be, this is the question, like, for social safety nets in my mind. What do we do with people that can't work? Not that they don't want to work. If you took an able-bodied person of sound mind, I have no desire to construct a wealth transfer to those people. Maybe there could be skill building workshops so they can better participate in society. But the real question comes down: what if somebody's mentally ill, or what if somebody is physically disabled, and the limits of what they can do, and their ability to be able to produce for themselves and sustain themselves? What do we, in a civilized society, do with those people? Now, there are some people that, for efficiency's sake, would say, fuck them. I can't get there. I do have compassion for people that can't help themselves. Because the alternative would be to turn a blind eye on them, and then all of a sudden we're not human beings. We're like a bird that just throws the weak bird out of the nest. It's not going to be strong enough to fly on its own? Fuck them. We're going to throw that bird out of the nest. I don't think human beings should do that. I think that we should, if we're going to have a construct around social safety nets, we need to figure out who qualifies for them. We need to figure out who's going to pay for it, and then how do we make it as efficient as possible to make sure that the need, that the resources are meeting the need in the most efficient way possible. And so my limitation would be, I think that if you can't work, whether it's for a disability, whether it's for age, it can be blindness, it can be, there's a lot of different factors, right? A busted hip, you're fucking out of the workforce. What do we do with those people? That's the only social safety net that I think is worth discussing. Everything else is a money grab and transfer of wealth.
I don't know about that. I think the only safety nets that should exist should be for orphan children and disabled people, whether they be elderly children, and veterans. I just don't believe in any other safety net beyond that.
So what do we do? It doesn't have to be the government, right? There's charities that do this work.
This is correct. But what do we do with the orphans, right? Because I've thought about this, especially when we're talking about abortion. Like, I can't kill a baby. And but then if you have, like, some absentee father and a mother that, that doesn't have job skills, and the kid's fucked, right? Do you rescue these kids and, like, put them in a chocolate factory and call them Oompa Loompas? Like what do we do with the orphan? I just don't know.
Well, wouldn't it then be at that point, there's a lot of couples right now that are unable to have children for medical reasons. They could adopt them out to those families if they meet certain conditions.
Well, we've made it very difficult to adopt in this country. We've made it very expensive to adopt. And then what we've done is we've got this temporary foster system where the worst of the worst people look at children and bringing children into their home as this money grab. The foster, it's fucking terrible. It's broken. And then the people that legitimately, like, desire to have kids and can't have them for whatever reason, or have decided, hey, there's a stockpile down at the shelter of dogs. I don't need to breed dogs. I can go get one from the shelter. I think we should think of human beings as the same way. Like, but nobody wants to make that system easy. If I wanted to go adopt a dog, all I have to do is go down there and pay the adoption fee, and I get the dog. That's it. Like, they ask a few questions, right? But you answer it. Like, do you have other dogs? Yes. Are you allowed to have dogs at your house? Yes. And that's you need to be sure that you're not allowing pedophiles and other weirdos to grab these kids, but we have far too many rules on adoption. And if we're gonna make sure that abortion is illegal, I think that we need to figure out what we're gonna do with these kids. What do you think we should do with them, Adam? Sorry, what? What do we do with these kids? What do we do with the orphans?
Well, I think that, a lot of the reason why a lot of people don't adopt is for the simple fact of the costs and, the legal process that they have to go through. I feel like if anything that should be subsidized by the government, it should be facilitating people successfully getting through that process when they otherwise have demonstrated that they're able to afford, supporting these children. And I feel like the schematic that's kind of used in gauging that affordability also takes into account the exorbitant cost of adoption. So, I don't know. I feel like, the red tape, in terms of the overall cost, I feel like that just needs to be streamlined and it needs to be brought down. Now, again, I think that every person that, adopts a child should go through a DOJ, Interpol, and, an extensive background check. But I'm just not seeing that the cost of what adoption costs today, how it actually accounts for that, and then you still have a bunch of perverts and a bunch of people that slip through the cracks. It's very strange to me.
I couldn't help but laugh, and it was no critique on Adams when you would ask them, well, what do you think of, right? If you're anti-abortion, what about the foster care problem? What about all the hurdles for adoption and such? And said he's conscious away from his phone, but that response, so it just summed it up. Like, huh? What? Like, oh wait, what? Wait, so again, I'm critique on Adams, but it's like, huh? What? Oh right. So
no, honestly, I'm at work now.
Hang on. I said it's not against you. It's not against you. It's on the right, where it's like, huh? I'm anti-abortion, but huh? Oh right. Where are these babies all magically going to be taken care of? Where's the accountability for the fucking abuse that goes on in foster care, the horrors that go on there on the regular, the pedophilia, just the regular abuse and starvation? There doesn't, where's that concern from the right, where it's like, oh no, don't kill any babies, but who's going to magically take care of these babies that are unwanted?
Well, right off the bat, America hates children. We know this. So, these are very easily fixable situations, and for some reason, there's a reluctance, not even an observation of the Constitution or people having, complaints about, a lack of rights. For some reason, the system continues to remain broken. So, I've come to the conclusion that America hates children. It absolutely does. If you look at the policies that America has laid out to the detriment of children, all the way down to abortion, I don't know. I just feel like this country hates children for some reason. It's very disgusting.
So, what if you had to get licensed to have a kid?
Well, if you're talking about, adoption, technically and effectively you are. You have to go through a home study. You have to go through
what about having the
kid?
How about having the kid in the first place? We make sure that somebody knows the rules of the road before we allow them to drive. But you can just have two of the biggest idiots on the planet fucking each other and creating kids. I think part of the issue that we have is that the stupid people do more breeding. And then the smart people are like, well, how am I going to pay for these fucking kids? And then they put these limits on. The reason the Western world, birth rates go down is because people are using, they're not just out there saying, let me have 11 kids. No shade thrown on you, Akima. But
having 11 kids in 2025 is probably an expensive endeavor for most Americans, but yet you're free to do that, and then we want to look to the government to say, hey, what are we going to do with these fucking kids?
I guess there's so much of small government now, right? You want to have license to have kids, but you want small government. That's kind of.
I'm throwing the question out there of like, why is it that the stupid people want to have so many kids?
Are you calling Hakeem a stupid?
No, this is not for him in particular. But if you look at countries with high birth rates, it's not exactly the fucking world beaters.
Yeah, I'm far from stupid, and my kids are far from being needed by the system.
Hakima, this is not shade on Hakima. The fact that I used 11 kids might have felt personal, but it's not. Okay, 7 kids. So now we're clearly not talking about Hakima. We're talking about only people with 7 kids.
So if you want to look at like a retirement and support strategy, Hakima got it covered. Not only does he have a lot of kids, but his kids actually do exceptionally well. So, I mean, if you look at 11 kids paying $1,000 a month, for their parent to age in place. I mean, I feel like Akima's probably going to die at one of those places where the Kardashians send their grandparents. Like, I mean, if you look at it from that perspective.
Do you guys worry at all that MAGA Republicans are having kids?
Yes, daily. It disturbs me that Marjorie Taylor Greene has children. But aside from that, I really don't feel like MAGA is, exceptional and just, being of the utmost concern and then reproducing.
Sorry, well, never mind, I'm not MAGA.
Well, and serendipity, with all due respect, you're not going to get pregnant having sex up against the wall. The semen's going to drip.
I don't know. I had 5. I'm pretty fertile.
Yeah, but you weren't doing the up against the wall back then.
Were any of them conceived standing up?
No, but the last one was definitely conceived upside down.
Well, that would be, consistent with science, according to Roger's theory.
Yes. I knew I was ovulating that day and I wanted a baby.
For those of you that didn't catch the reference, you have to show up every day to be able to understand these inside jokes that I will not explain to anybody. Dr. Jordan, tell me about the animal community. What do they do with if an animal has too many offspring? Is there like a social safety net in the animal kingdom where they say, hey, we need to take care of the weak animals? What do they do in the animal kingdom?
Well, I mean, inexperienced moms don't always succeed, and they might lose offspring for different reasons once they're born. But it just depends. I mean, they're meant to carry as many, like a lion pride, or elephants. They will also help care for others' offspring. So I think that it just depends.
You saying it's a jungle out there?
Yeah. Oh, never mind.
There's an African proverb that says, every morning in the Serengeti, a gazelle awakes knowing that it has to be faster than the fastest lion. And that same morning, a lion awakes knowing that it has to be faster than the slowest gazelle. And the point of this is that every morning, whether you're a lion or a gazelle, you need to be ready to run. I think that we should think about that.
I'm more interested in the positions that women want to assume to conceive.
Be changing topics, and that's not allowed.
Kind of, sort of, maybe a little bit scientific. I think that what they're talking about, and they're just throwing darts at it, is the scarcity of resources.
Someone asked me about the grizzly. I used to serve on the board of grizzly people. I'm happy to talk about. We should tell a grizzly man story and find a parallel. Yeah, well, the grizzly man was a bad example. A friend of mine who worked for Alaska Fish and Game once likened me a little bit to grizzly man because I used to showboat and do things, but I guess because I was credentialed, I didn't get as much hazing as grizzly man, who incidentally made a fortune doing what he was doing. But he would take a different woman up to Alaska every year. I don't know what the nature of each relationship was like if he, was sincerely into them or whatever, but he would take them up every summer. And maybe it wasn't every single year, it was a different woman, but close. And I don't know, that was like, he felt like he was in his domain, and so that he was showing off. So it was kind of a really tragic story.
Grizzly Man documentary? That Grizzly Man?
Timothy Treadwell, whose story was featured in Grizzly Man the movie, yeah.
Okay, because I thought, the main guy just, tragically, not only him, but his mother, I think, right? His girlfriend or ex-girlfriend were both involved.
No, it was caught on audio, and
audio,
but I refused to listen to it because I have enough trauma in my life.
Would you say that was narcissistic for him to think he could live amongst
100%. 100%. I know the whole story very well, and I know more than I should, and yes, but he wanted to be an actor, and he found his acclaim doing something different. But then like many people who get involved with these things, he thought he was like God's gift to bears, and instead he put himself and the bears in harm's way. So it was a kind of a tragic story.
He struggled with addiction, right? Wasn't this was like his elixir? This was his own, being in touch with nature and God. This was the only thing that kept him sober, I think, was part of his journey.
Well, that may be, but the thing is that he, I don't know that it's any different than some professional athletes who find themselves in a situation where they have these adoring fans, and then their heads get bigger, literally and figuratively, and he could do no wrong. So, I know the person who found his remains. I remember having a conversation with him about, because I used to go in and train wild grizzly bears. Well, bears that were orphaned, right, and work with them on behavioral enrichment and stuff. And we used to have these conversations. I came from a science-based perspective, and I would never do what he did with those animals. And I've written about, in different forums and on publications about what's safe and what's not, even for photographers, of course. But Timothy Treadwell was an exception in that he gained a huge fan base. And I think the footage that he took away over the years was very useful, but he didn't follow the rules. And you begin to think that, you can get away with this or that. It's a whole kind of psychological journey that people go on, I think, in these, when you're with wild animals, unlike an inanimate object like a race car, right? Like if you're race car driving and you get a thrill out of it, but there's an allure in working with dangerous animals that you think, you're safer than you are. So, I don't know. I'm done talking.
So big government's making their push on the poll. It's up to 24%.
What poll are you talking about?
The poll above the room?
Oh, there's a new one.
It's been there since this room started. So 1 out of 4 people that surveyed want big government. It's amazing.
You got a lot of win there, Edward.
Edward, you're off mute.
Yeah, what's up with that, Randy? How come these polls don't add up to 100%? John Kitover, but what do you think of this poll? Are you surprised that only 60% want small government?
Well, I just asked Grok, can you please give me the top 100 line items in the annual budget of $7 trillion? So if you really want to know what big government is and what all the borrowing and spending is funding, you should probably know what the top 100 line items are in the annual federal budget of expenditure. And so it doesn't surprise me that a quarter of people are communist, socialist, Marxist, redistributionists, high taxers, because a lot of these big government people want to eat the rich, destroy the rich, and that's really the hand that feeds all of society. But if you have just a moment, I will read to you the top at least 30 line item expenditures.
Can you give us the top 10, start with 10 and work it to number 1?
Yeah, here we go. Just give me 1 minute. I gotta find it again.
Capitalism is good, Lou. In fact, I think it's the best idea that human beings have ever come up with.
Real quick, why aren't people watching Howard Stern anymore?
Because he's turned into a faggot. I could use that word. If you look at my PTR, I'm an ally. He's just not funny anymore. He's probably happier in his life because whatever trauma led him to being as funny as he was once upon a time, he's probably worked through all that stuff. But now he's just not funny.
Somebody says that he wears a wig.
You never evolved.
Somebody said that hair is not actually his anymore. Well, he did do the blackface comedy routine with that famous African American comedian actor. So, there was a time where you could be sensational and try to be funny with race play, but those days are over. I mean,
As the only Jew on the stage, I think, I can tell you that we're all traumatized. And if there's a Jew who thinks that they don't have a history of trauma, then I think we need to kick them off Clubhouse because they're lying.
well, there's a lot of Jews. My father's a Jew, my uncles are Jews, my aunts are Jews, my cousins, and they came over in 1900 on a boat and went through Ellis Island, and they all made a big success of it. And I think a lot of immigrants that come to this country are very focused on success and eliminating a lot of the bullshit, of American culture and society. And they maintain their close knit little group, or they're just hyper focused on success and they don't look back. And success is, what they absolutely value. I mean, it's a little materialistic, bougie, or commercialized in a way because a lot of these immigrants are such brand whores. But that's the psychology behind their success in a way that they're not going to accept mediocre jobs. They're going to go for the big positions. They're going to become optometrists, dentists.
What's interesting is that we've
if America was so centered on success,
we've lost the propaganda war in this, in perhaps the most important fight of our lives, and that to me is kind of insane, right? Like, okay, so we can, in terms of commerce, in terms of building economies, we can do all these things, but we've completely lost sight of the need to win a propaganda war against people who have far fewer resources but many more bodies. It's amazing.
John, wouldn't you say intelligent immigrants coming to America look at success differently because they look at America not the same way some citizens look at it?
Yeah, it's like
Meaning the process of becoming an American is knowing about America and how it functions and falling in love with the idea that, hey, if I can go here and I can do it, I'm going to do it.
It's just, I think it's just in group, out group, where you come from nothing. Like, I've traveled to third world countries, and it's honestly invigorating seeing people live in garbage, because when you come back to America, you literally kiss the ground and you say, I can't believe how other people live in third world countries. Praise God, that America is the way that it is. So when you come from shit and you arrive in a golden palace, that feeling like stays with you. So there's no like degradation of your ambition. It's 100% all the way. I'm gonna go to college, become an accountant, a CPA, an optometrist, a surgeon. Like, you're gonna work your way into the highest paying fields, and that's why when you go to your doctor, you're usually greeted by Mr. Patel or Dr. Patel.
It's hunger. The majority of immigrants here have a drive and a purpose in them. They have something they want to set up for multiple generations, and oftentimes they achieve that. By the third generation, it's gone usually, or everybody's assimilated. But the wealth in America is usually dissipated or gone by the third generation because you don't have stewards anymore. You don't have people that are hungry. Once you touch the golden cow, as John put, or as long as you live in comfort and you have your iPhones and you live in this utopia mindset that you don't need to scratch out a living, you don't need to fight, you don't need to be forceful, you don't need to even challenge the rules to break the rules, then you're just, succumb to mediocrity. We have a lot of people that are mediocre, and they're fat. I'm sorry, majority of people are fucking obese, mediocre, constantly.
I don't know if anybody's watching this, but Ron Paul is having his 90th birthday barbecue live on X Spaces.
John, I was invited to that, and I have to tell you, the last time I saw Ron Paul at the Reno Libertarian Convention, he didn't look good. He had to sit in a quiet room till it was time for him to come out and speak, and then he goes out and he speaks, and then as soon as he's done speaking, back to a quieter. He's not been right since the stroke that he had on air. Did you ever see that where he stroked out while he was like on a live broadcast?
No, I didn't see that.
He's not really been the same. And in fact, the guy that he does a podcast with now is just like a fucking Russian propagandist. I think Ron Paul has fallen from the grace that when he was in office, I thought he was great, but as he ages, he gets crazier.
Yeah, I was happy and proud to meet him, but he did not have that Trump gusto and bravado of saying, well, we're going to lock her up. So, he was not an effective communicator when he ran as president. But these are the top, I asked Grok, what are the top 20 spending categories of the annual $7 trillion budget? This is from the lowest to the highest. It's allowances, commerce at 15 billion, energy at 20 billion, community development 30 billion, science and space 35 billion, agriculture 40 billion, natural resources 50 billion, general government expenditures 60 billion, housing 80 billion, international aid 70 billion, justice 80 billion, transportation 120 billion, education and training 200 billion, veterans get 305 billion, health including Medicaid is at 620 billion, income security which is 675 billion, defense at 921 billion, net interest 928 billion, Medicare is 1 trillion, 1 trillion 11 billion, and Social Security at 1.4 trillion annually. Now, that's not that doesn't seem totally accurate to me, but I think it's like a good index at least. So
that feels like 2023 numbers.
I mean, it's kind of weird because Social Security and income security, it feels like that's the same program. So that would put it at 2 trillion, but they generally only report Social Security at a 1 trillion annual year budget.
I think the income dig into that. Drill into it. I think that's referring to SNAP.
But another way to
SNAP fall under agriculture because that's part of the agricultural programs.
Well, it's got a cash component and it's got a food assistance. So you get the you can actually get cash or food credits.
Why do states individually manage the disbursement of these programs as opposed to the federal government administering the disbursement of these programs?
Well, a better question is why do we collect it, send it to a centralized place, pay huge administrative fees, then disperse it to the state for additional administrative fees, only to trickle out pennies on the dollar for the benefit. I mean, we have created the most inefficient system possible. Like, even if you are pro redistribution of wealth, like, at least be good at it. At least distribute it with less administrative costs. But it's almost as if it's not important to them to be efficient, and being wasteful it feels like it's a virtue.
It's not their money, that's why. So they don't really care. My wife worked for the city for 31 years. Some of the meetings she had was unbelievable. How they think about revenue and money, the taxpayers and the citizens. It's pretty sad. All the I can't even tell you, it's unfortunate that we have people in government that have zero clue about finances.
If you guys want to learn about personal finance, there's a guy at YouTube, younger guy. I think he's back in LA. He's a young kid that sold real estate. He's just really smart. What he does is he gives really sound personal finance advice about like credit and investing and saving and just how to manage your personal finances. And his name is Graham Stephan. I don't know if you guys know this kid. And what he's figured out is by giving high quality information for free, that the algorithm really favors him, and his YouTube channel kills it. He makes a ton of money giving free advice to people on personal finance, and I would highly recommend it. Also, sharing his videos with people that are younger, because he's a younger guy himself, and so when you got old people like me, talking about personal finance, sometimes kids' eyes glaze over, but Graham Stephan's got, an energy and a fresh face. People should check it out. Is anybody here familiar with Graham Stephan?
No, I've never heard of him. But this is what income security breaks down to. It's a $675 billion 2025 estimate. covers programs aiding low-income, unemployed, federal retirees. This is the breakdown. Refundable tax credits.
John, your numbers are bogus. It's going to get worse. Okay, like I keep bringing up the big facts. Okay, y'all think that I'm trolling. Okay, that is going to be the bane of our freaking existence. The fatter and the more unhealthier people get. You know, just in, I believe it was this room yesterday, people were having a conversation about, legalizing drugs. So, I mean, if you're going to fund a healthcare system that's going to have a bunch of fat, lazy drug addicts, okay, don't you think that that's going to start to burden the taxpayer?
These are the numbers. Refundable tax credits are at 115 billion. Food and SNAP, child meals, 150 billion. SSI is at 67 billion. Unemployment compensation is 62 billion. Federal employee retirement is at 160 billion. Housing assistance, 60 billion. And then there's other foster care TANF program, 62 billion. Again, this all comes out of cbo.gov.
So let's revisit those numbers in another 5 to 10 years. If our country hasn't filed for bankruptcy by that time.
Do you guys think that there's a borrowing and spending problem in America?
Yeah, that's how people got so fat, Roger.
So you have to borrow to spend.
People by living beyond their means. Like that's become completely normal.
Yep. Adams, do you like the new title of the room?
Oh, beautiful title. But I mean, it's a fact though, Roger. Like, the bigger the average American has become, the bigger our government has become.
It's a very disingenuous game that the government is playing on its American population by borrowing and spending so much at the tune of $2 trillion a year that they're spending that they're not taking in revenue. Why can't there be some type of constitutional convention or consensus at the leadership level that is inappropriate, that to borrow $2 trillion and spend it year after year after year with no end in sight is absolutely ludicrous? Why can't we have a balanced budget amendment or a law that demands a balanced budget unless in time of extreme need such as war?
Hey, John, you know the answer to that question. That's kind of rhetorical, right?
Well, it's not. It's actually just linguistic logic and common sense that, if you talk to Maxine Waters, she would say something like you just said, or she'd give out there some other type of deflection. I mean, this is very clear communication that demands, that you perk your ears up and say, he's 100% right. Why aren't we all going in the streets and demanding accountability but rational budgets and rational spending? You can't spend now unless you borrow. And so it creates this future event, which we want to avoid, which is essentially bankruptcy, liquidation, or degradation. I mean, the same rules that apply to your checking account should apply to the rules of your government. Otherwise, that mirror system is broken. It's dishonest, disingenuous. It's like looking in a mirror and seeing a fake image of yourself. We want the real image bounced back to us, in our fiscal accountability. This is unsustainable. Chairman Powell says we are on an unsustainable path. And at 2050, at $4 trillion in annual interest, plus all these other expenditures that I just read, it will create hyperinflation. And your milk will be $20 as opposed to $1.99. Your bread, your eggs, your butter, it will all go up. I mean, in Weimar Republic, prices were doubling every single day in the early 20s. So that's what will happen, but we can prevent that. But that's the worst part, is that shouldn't even happen in a well-functioning economy. Unfortunately, 40% of this economy is completely artificial. It's all borrowed it's all borrowing and spending. Your doctor, your hospital chain, hospitals are shutting down because Medicare, Medicaid is no longer going to these facilities. So the whole system is built on borrowing and spending, and it's shutting down part of it, but it's also continuing.
I think there's, as far as whatever the number is going, basically going to infinity, i.e. the dollar's going to zero, I think this is an inevitable path. I think there's sort of like some optimum that they can, try to ride it out. Like, what is the optimum level of borrowing and interest rate and so forth that they can squeeze as much juice out of the lemon as possible. But it's clear like it's all going to break down probably in the next 20 years, max 20 years.
And I don't know about you, but I fully intended those. I'm definitely blaming fat people.
So I just talking to a ChatGPT 5 here, and they say by 2075, 50 years from now, it says debt held could easily exceed 300% of GDP, which in today's dollars might mean 150 to 200 trillion dollars. And that's not unfunded liabilities. That would be debt in 50 years. Anybody want to comment on that?
I think that's way further out than I would expect. I think it's much sooner that we'll hit those numbers.
Well, I asked it for what it's going to be in 50 years. Let me ask it shorter clips. Hold on.
Like we're already at 120, 130, maybe more. So like doubling the debt to GDP it's going to come much faster than that, Roger.
So no, this is referring to the 37 trillion that we have now. They say in 50 years it'll be somewhere between 150 and 150. This is not the unfunded liabilities. If I get you that number, it'll scare you. It'll get to a number that you probably couldn't write on a piece of paper.
So I hear you guys talking about the problem. So what's the solution?
I would offer a solution, but you guys aren't ready for it. You want to hear it? They're not ready, Roger. They're not ready.
Roger, what was the